Here's what I'd like everybody to think about. We don't even need to show the calculator here. I just want to give everybody a sense of this. If what you were to do is, let's say, just reflect and think about if you deployed money into some venture business. One of your friends has started some, he needs $50,000 and you're doing good. You're early in life. You take $50,000 and throw at that at age 35. Now, it doesn't work out. Here's the problem. Number one, if I were to ask you, so just listening right now, I want you to sit there and just answer this for yourself. What is the worst rate of return you can get on your money? Like, what's a really bad outcome? And the first thing, because 0 is pretty bad for most people, the first place we go is 0 rate of return. But that's not right. The worst we could do is negative 100%. The loss of our capital is the worst we could do. And if we deploy,
sometimes in an investment, depending on the investment, it could be worse than negative 100%. If you're in a real estate investment and then you get sued for something that happens, and now you're out your original investment and whatever that lawsuit was. So
roof repair, negative cash flow returns,
Right.
having to sell the property at a loss after owning it for 6 years, which we see all the time. You just don't hear about it at the cocktail party. That person's not super excited about talking about that over a glass of Cabernet. What they'd rather talk about is the other thing they did that worked out well. Well, here's the easy one. If you lose $50,000 in that investment at age 35, and let's just use 6.5% as what we would call your cost of money rate, meaning if you didn't lose that money, you could have had that money growing somewhere on your balance sheet at 6.5%. Okay, pretty easy. That $50,000 does not cost you $50,000. That money costs you $453,000 by your age 65. And if you think that your family is healthy and that you're going to stay healthy, I'm going to give you the extreme version. The loss of that $50,000 over your lifetime, if you lived age 95, would be almost, like $2,947 less than $3 million. $3 million wiped off your balance sheet because of an investment you made at age 30 that lost 100% of its value. But here's the super devious thing that happens on our balance sheet is what? That we never think back to it. We're never reflecting on it. We're never saying to ourselves, oh, it cost me this much money. What are we saying? We're like, oh yeah, I made some bad investments in the past. They're all gone. Like, that's it. That's all we reflect on. Now, why I talk about this with such conviction? I've seen me do it. In fact, as a business owner, entrepreneur, making really good money at a young age, all kinds of opportunities come at you. I have invested in banks that have gone bust. I have invested in first trust deeds that have gone bust, that we finally sold the real estate that was underneath them for about 1/10 of what we originally lent on the property 15 years later. I have invested in a bulletproof set of publicly traded companies, one that was creating the MRAPs that were deployed overseas. We first started fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, and IEDs were a major problem. MRAPs are the super Humvees with the V bottom. And also an undefeatable new treatment for insulin that allowed, totally FDA approved, allowed diabetics to not have to use needles anymore. They could do it via an inhaler. Tell me that shouldn't have just killed it. Anyway, all those companies totally bust, lost almost all the money, literally over 6 figures when it's all counted up. And I don't get to not have those losses now aggregating against me in my overall wealth building profile. They are a part of my money's autobiography.
Thankfully, my autobiography is being a few years younger than Paul and getting to meet him and hear about all those experiences before I had a chance to get into them. So thank you for adding back to my balance sheet that way.
Well, and speaking of which, though, there are things that you have been around, that you've noticed people around you do, that similarly creates significant loss on their balance sheet.
Well, buying a new car, when I bought my first grown-up person car as I was getting successful in my career, all I got from the people around me at work at the time was, hey, congratulations, good job. Although I was spending more than I should have at the time for that car, definitely. But if you think about someone buying, say, a new BMW, that, let's call it an $80,000 BMW, or you're paying $1,288 a month if you're going to finance it for a few years. Think about me as a young person at, say, 25 when I might have wanted to do that versus someone at 65. Buying that $80,000 BMW is more expensive for me than for that 65-year-old, because I have more time to compound that loss. Paul just talked about lost opportunity cost of money. And if my opportunity cost rate is 6.5, and so is it 6.5 for that 65-year-old, well, I don't know how long either of us have to live, but we're both going to guess that I have a few years longer if everything goes well for us. So I might have 30 years of compounding, 60 years of compounding at that 6.5% loss. He's only got, or she's only got, however many years they have left. So literally, where we are in our own biographical timeline has an impact on the cost and rate of return of things for us.
Well, and we probably talked about this over 100 episodes ago. The idea that while the big box financial retailers, the financial media would tell you young people can take more risk, older people shouldn't take as much risk. That's not a rule that you should follow. And here's what I mean. Not that you couldn't maybe tolerate additional volatility in an academically allocated, globally diversified portfolio.
Sure.
That I think is accurate. But to say that you can just take more risk, that means you can go ahead and log those big losses early because you can quote unquote recover from them. Except the problem with your quote unquote recovery, those are my scary quotes for those of you just listening today, that puts you in a position, it's actually a larger climb. It's a larger climb to get out of the lost opportunity cost because it's ticking against you longer. Number one. Number two, when it comes to either buying the BMW or the losses, well, the person in their 50s is much more likely, if they have been implementing principles that had them not buy a BMW new until their 50s, puts them in a position that now they have enough other money on their balance sheet. So if they do log a loss of $50,000 or buy an $80,000 car, hopefully they already have $5 or $6 million on their balance sheet to put you in the position that the loss due to the car, the loss due to the bad investment does not mess you up like it would the 30-year-old. But the 30-year-old just keeps charging ahead, blinders on, paying no attention to all the lost opportunity costs they create behind them. A little bit like a speedboat going through the river, just creating wake for people around them. You're creating wake, not in a good way, that is jostling every other financial decision that you're making. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, ring that bell, and by the way, make sure to share this video. I don't know if you know this, but my cyborg body runs 100% on YouTube views and likes. Please don't let my batteries die.